Good evening, welcome. It is once again All for United. We are back. A little bit of a while since we've been in before. That pesky international break will do that to us. Do we already care about England? Do we already care about the fact that we've got Thomas Tuchel managing it? Do you know what? We probably are going to ask that question tonight because I'm quite intrigued about it in terms of what other people are thinking. But let's be honest, do I really give that much for monkeys? Not at all. But would you believe it? It was all on LBC as I was driving home, and that's all anybody wanted to talk about, which is mad when you consider what's going on in the world. But ignore that. Let's get ourselves back onto what's going on for United. We've assembled a crack panel ready for another evening of discussion and diatribes, I'm sure, all around our favourite football team, Manchester United. And let's say hello to them. Andrew's just below us. How are you doing, sir? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all good. So looking forward to the show tonight, and obviously the game on the Saturday back at Old Trafford.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. It's very much winging its way back round. And just over there, it's been a while. I think I've seen him. I'm not sure I recognise him too much. Who is that down there? Oh, it's Matt Morgan. How you doing, sir? You all right down there?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, it does feel like a while since I was last on. But yeah, it's good to be back on. At least the internationals are over now and Talk United can pick up now and not have us all depressed like we have been for the first few weeks of the season. So yeah, hopefully it's a good one.
Absolutely. I can't stand international breaks really, but there we are. And back by popular demand, maybe not ours, but his for sure, is Daz. How you doing, sir? You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just glad that this international break is over and at least we're going into the next few games with a little bit more clarity than we had 3 weeks ago. So, yeah, quite excited to get going again. I love England, but I can't get behind an international break so regular at the start of the season.
It does my nut in, it really does. If you're new around here, please feel free to subscribe. If you're not new around here, please hit the like button. That would be wonderful. I was going to start with what's on that thumbnail, but as we've all mentioned, the international break, I will ask your opinion on the fact that we now have an England manager starting at the beginning of 2025. Obviously, Thomas Tuchel has been announced, which is great news for Manchester United because it means that we're coming nowhere near our football club. But it does mean that we have got a new manager in charge. It's not Lee Carsley, obviously. Gareth Southgate's gone. But here we are with Thomas Tuchel. Andrew, you bothered? Do you care? Any thoughts? Anything you'd like to mention about the fact that Thomas Tuchel's our new manager?
No, I think I put it in our chat yesterday. I was like, with Tuchel now, England, it means he won't be coming to United if Ten Hag was, didn't go right for him, he was let go. So, but to be fair, United comes first, I'm using Benny's line here. So it's just like England, I get behind them in major tournaments, but other than that, I just can't stand international breaks. I just want to be watching United.
It's a bit mad. Matt, there's been a whole load going on about it. Like I say, you wouldn't have believed it listening to LBC on the way home. You really wouldn't. Basically, the guy that was on there was effectively trying to get people to argue over the fact that it's a foreign manager. And that, so basically what he was saying was if you do have an English manager and that's all you want is an English manager, you're xenophobic. But on the same breath, then arguing with those people saying, as we've said many times before, well, if you've got to be English to play for the team, why not be English to manage the team? Which seems like a reasonable enough argument as well. So you can see both sides. How fussed are you about the fact that Thomas Tuchel has arrived as manager?
Not overly fussed. I don't think people that are saying it has to be an English manager, I don't think it has to necessarily be the case. Also, they tried that with Southgate and obviously he got them to like a semi-final and a final, didn't really win anything with England. So end of the day, it's something different and hopefully it benefits England, really. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. But similar to Andrew, I'll get behind and watch them during a tournament, but during an international break, it just doesn't appeal, unfortunately.
We'll just take this moment to point out factually that Gareth Southgate is the most successful England manager since Ralph Ramsey. He may not have won anything, but let's be absolutely brutal about it. He's been better than anything else we've had. Bearing in mind, we invented the game of football and we've won it once. Just want to throw that one out there. On the men's side, obviously, we've been doing quite well as well. Daz, talk to us over your side. Are you bothered about this in the slightest?
I'm actually really annoyed, and it's nothing to do with Thomas Tuchel. I think Thomas Tuchel is probably the most qualified England manager the FA have ever appointed in terms of being qualified for such a role. You know, he fits every single. He's a tournament manager because he likes his cup runs. He likes the Champions League. He's very adaptive in the way that he can work with different formations to suit the players that he's got at his disposal at any given time. He plays good football, so that, you know, a lot of England fans are going to be happy to see his style of football as opposed to Gareth Southgate's. The only thing that I have an issue with is his nationality. I think, for me, I believe that it should have been an English manager, not just for the fact that it's an England job and it should go to an English manager. It's the message that sends to other England managers across the English pyramid of football. You know, whether that means you have to give that to a Michael Carrick that's currently in the Championship just in order to keep it an English manager, then so be it. But for me, if you made a list of what nationalities shouldn't be managed in England, you'd naturally say Scottish, Welsh. You would. You'd say these nationalities, and the German one would be the only one that would come up. And it's a real shame because I think the appointment in terms of the quality and the characteristics of the manager is probably amazing. I could genuinely see the manager winning a World Cup with this team because I do think he could do it. I don't think he's like part of me is happy with the role because he's now not going to take a future United role. And the reason why I was against Thomas Tuchel taking the United role is because there is nothing that I've seen that tells me that he's a campaign manager. I think he's a great tournament manager and I think he can win cups. But we've already got a manager that can win cups because he has won cups. The idea is we'd need a, you know, we're going to move on from Erik ten Hag. We need a campaign manager. So part of me's happy that he's got the job, happy the fact that England do have a really, really world-class manager, but really annoyed that it sends a poor message to English managers and English coaches across English football.
Very, very interesting. Benny saying if it was Jose or Pep as the England manager, it wouldn't be a problem. The English love driving, wearing German brands, but God forbid a German England manager, whilst also saying successful in failure is Southgate. And you might be right, Benny, but doesn't change the fact that he's the only manager of England to take them to a tournament final other than Alf Ramsey. That's it. Nobody else has managed it. So if he's successful in failure, every other manager that's ever managed England is even worse than him. So, you know, I'm not trying to say he's brilliant. I'm not trying to say he's the new Don of English management, but he is absolutely just, he's just been given pelters far too often for my liking. And I suppose if anybody cares about my 2 pennies worth, I actually think we've already got these other football. They're saying it's a great signing. I just think that actually, if you're going to say this is the England national team, this is the Scottish national team, I do kind of think they should be the nationality of the team that they're meant to be managing, because is that not the whole idea of international sport, that you are pitting yourself up against other nations? I mean, let's be honest. Imagine if Scotland had had Alex Ferguson as manager there, they might have actually won something, Connor, eh? As it is, you know, not doing very well at all.
Technically, he did.
He did for a bit, yeah.
Yeah, World Cup '86, but that was because.
How did he get on in that one? Do you remember?
Not very well. If I remember,
not a great idea to be jumping in then, really, is it? Just there on that one. I don't think he did too brilliantly, but he was managing Scotland, so you know you've got to remember that fact. But I don't know. I just kind of think that should be it. But genuinely, I could not really care less. And we devoted 7 minutes over to it, and that was about 6 minutes and 30 seconds too long, really. But I kind of felt we should probably do that. And yes, indeed, he was the interim. I can't remember who the manager was at the time. Jock Stein, I think. I think he had a heart attack, and I didn't remember whether he'd passed away or not, but I knew he'd had the heart attack, and obviously Alex Ferguson stepped in. So there we go. And that's a wonderful segue into what we're here to talk about today, because Do you know, I've spent the last 10 days actually quite merrily, not doing too much, quite, just, all right, it's fine, just have a little break with everything else that's going on. And I read something yesterday, and I didn't quite know how to feel. Part of me felt angry, part of me felt it was fair, part of me sort of understood what was going on. And it was just a lot of mixed emotions. I didn't quite know how to feel. But obviously, the news is coming out that Ineos have effectively sacked Fergie. Now, let's be clear. Alex Ferguson, Sir Alex Ferguson, or as I prefer to call to him, the Lord God Almighty, has managed just the most incredible era of football that this football club is probably ever going to see within that finite amount of time under one manager. I will be gobsmacked if we get another one who was as good as him. But here's the but. Does that buy him a ticket, as Matt Busby did, to be properly involved amongst the top and to be the ambassador that he was? Now, that's what he's been effectively stopping. He is no longer going to be an ambassador for Manchester United FC, which basically means he'll still be part of the celebratory member of the board. He's got no real influence or sway in that respect. But it also means he's not going to have that ambassadorial role. Now, I don't know what you guys think. I think the ambassadorial role is effectively code word for let's keep giving them some money. They can just pop off a couple of places. And, it's a bit like being in the royal family, I would imagine. You just turn up every now and again, open a couple of supermarkets, wave at a few people, hug a few kids and sign a few autographs. And you get paid a ridiculous amount of money. And I don't know what you guys feel about this. So I'm going to kind of ask you because, Andrew, you've been a fan of this football club for an incredibly long time. You spent your hard-earned, as we know, with your season tickets there. But in my heart, I just feel like Alex Ferguson, like he's got the keys to the city, effectively. He should be able to go where he wants, when he wants, and effectively do what he wants because the football club is where it is because of him. Obviously, there's a lot more pride to that, but in the modern era, I can't even say that. I was going to say he's the Gareth Southgate of the current, but he's not. He's totally not. Trying to link it, and I'm like, no, I can't even do that without keeping a straight face. That's not happening. But you get what I mean. Matt Busby was the god of sort of the pre-80s, and now you've got Alex Ferguson post-80s. So what do you think about it? Is this a good move? I don't think. I mean, Jay Motti from Stretford Paddock put the optics isn't great, whether you agree with it or not. But then on the backhand of that, they fired a lot of people or made a lot of people redundant for smaller amounts of money than Alex Ferguson's going to have. So, but what is going on? What is this the right decision? Have Ineos gone a little bit mad? I don't know what to make of it. Help.
It's like the media saying, spinning like he's been sacked, but some report it's been amicable between Fergie and Sir Jim as well. But I think Rio Ferdinand put out, it says it shows to the whole club that no one is safe at that club. So, but let's say Fergie, at the end of the season, not having that, earning that money, but he's going to have other income streams, so he's not going to be struggling in any other way. But it's just, it's going to save the club some money, but as somebody put it, it's trimming the soul of the club as well. He's, you look on the face of it, if you look at the numbers on a spreadsheet, it's, it's tangible, it's a no-brainer decision. You want this cost-cutting exercise that Ineos are doing, it's one area they've thought, well, it's relevant to do, but on the other hand, it's just people still, care about United still because of Fergie, even after the decade that, it's been since he's left as manager. So even when he's turning up to games as well, it's the same memories of people's memories sometimes can get a bit short and remember why United are one of the biggest clubs and still are. It's just Fergie's no longer a part of that club. It makes, you could say, it's almost like easy to forget all that went before it. So there's an emotional argument, but today's football world, it's hard nosed, it's a business, and sentiments sometimes they're a bit thin on the ground. So, but you just have to ask yourself sometimes, is it really worth it as well? I know they put the spin on, it's been all amicable as well. I thought it's never a dull moment, you know. I thought, you know, in these 2 weeks, it's all going to be about Ten Hag. Is he going to stay? And then we got that left field of Fergie, you know, stepping down as well. So, but it's just, for me, it's just, I can understand why they're sort of doing it, but it was the later story, you know, directors and not being allowed into the dressing room, whether that's after matches or even before. I just thought, so Alex, keys to the city, you got the keys to Old Trafford, you can walk wherever you want. You know, you built the modern day Manchester United. You know, you can do what you want, but it just, I just think, yeah, saving money, but it's it's what Fergie can bring, and just like, and the Glazers were happy to pay that, you know what his value brought to the club, and the Glazers are happy to pay that. But I say, in these new times, making bigger changes. So it's just, I think from what I read, like those close to Fergie, you know, it's like those that be, you know, saddened, you know, to see those that have lost their jobs, you know, being made redundant as well. So let's say Fergie, you know, he has his opinion about the club, but he'll only give it if he's being asked. You know, he's not going to go out for, right, oh, I think this and you should change that. He's just, if he's asked for an opinion, he will give it. So, but yeah, it's just, for Fergie, I just think, well, without him, you know, what would Manchester United be, what it is today? I think all those years ago when he wasn't having such a good time like Ten Hag is, you know, if he'd have got the sack, history would have been rewritten in a very different way.
Well, we would have, like, you think about it, the players that came through in '92 especially, you know, they still would have been there, but would they have been utilised in the manner that they were used? Would they have been brought in at the time they were brought in? Would the manager that replaced Ferguson have had just the absolute brass cojones to turn around and play them all, regardless of old Alan Hansen? You'll never win anything with kids. Well, we not, Alan. Well, that's why you're no longer working for Match of the Day, Sunshine. And, you know, you look at these sorts of things. But Matt, for you, there's a few things coming in here that's quite reasonable. Obviously, Bartime saying it's fairly standard for a business to look at legacy costs. You know, he thinks it's fine, which again is fair enough. But he's also put in that he felt it was hush money to Fergie to not damage share price or just the Glazers. I mean, even if that is the case, like, all you're doing by doing this is absolutely making it possible for him to do that should he wish to. But Matt, I think for me, this is the thing. The timing of it is just really bizarre. It seems like a strange thing to do in a fortnight where, and we'll get to this, I'm sure, people have been talking about, you know, is this going to be when Ten Hag goes? Are Ineos going to pull the trigger here? All that this has really done is, you know, again, you go down Twitter, effectively, you've got people going, yeah, don't care. You've got people going, that's outrageous. How can you do this to Ferguson? And then you've just got that middle group of people that are all sitting there saying, how has Ferguson got the sack before Ten Hag? And the discourse is just turning it into, again, another circus and another sort of shoe within which people can start trying to hit Ten Hag. And I just don't know that it's necessary. Like, how is this sort of news coming out in the first place? But why do we even need to know about it? If that's what they've decided to do and he's still going to be on the board, how is it that this news that he's just basically not going to be paid anymore, how has that come out? How are we knowing about it? Because all that does is cause unrest. And like we say, it's the optics. Like, you are literally turning around to the man who made Manchester United what it is and said, we don't need you. We're not going to pay you anymore. And like, he's not a poor man.
No.
But like, by the same token, he's still giving up his time to turn around and represent the club. Should he not still be paid for that? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think more so in terms of the timing. I think the timing, obviously, if you look at it, it's not ideal. If you look where we are as a club in terms of obviously how the season's going, which is obviously the most important part of it, There is a lot more pressing issues that you think Ineos should be looking at and dealing with at the moment. Obviously, you look at all the speculation over Ten Hag over the last couple of weeks or so, saying he was going to be sacked, which I don't think anyone actually really believed was actually going to happen, let's be honest. But I think the news coming out like it has, I think it's whether it's the media trying to stir things up, like when it comes to United, put out an article, make some loads of money, plenty of clicks, all that. I just don't think it's relevant that it's actually come out in the way it has. I think, like you said, the link with the Ten Hag news, people are just going now saying it's making Ineos almost look bad to a lot of the fans that think it's a bad idea, comparing, saying, why is Ten Hag still in the job? Looking at how poor we are when you've got someone as iconic as Fergie, who they're literally not even paying anymore after everything that he's done. So yeah, it is a strange one. I just don't think it's news that necessarily had to come out, I feel. It could have been something that's been done behind closed doors and the fans didn't really need to be made aware of it, because ultimately they're saying he can still attend games, which in fairness, still attend games, whether he wants to attend games or not, let's be honest. But the fact that he's going to still be sat in the director's box most likely every game, the fans will have been none the wiser had this news not come out. So to me, it is completely irrelevant. I can see it from an Ineos perspective. Obviously, they've got to decide what's best for the club, but then you've got to look at it from a fan perspective and a club perspective, and it's all sentimental and it's Ferg at the end of the day. So for me, I think it is a little bit disrespectful, more so that it has come out in the way it has. But like I say, we didn't really need to know about it, and none of the fans would have been none the wiser had it have happened or had it have been announced, to be fair.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you talk about who announced it, but we don't know. Really, it hasn't really been announced as such. And it's rare on this channel that we'll talk about something that hasn't necessarily come out by being properly put out there by the club. But this is the whole thing. It's that it would be the optics. Whether it turns out to be true or whether it doesn't turn out to be true, Daz, it's still quite a thing to go and do. But I'll try and throw this from a different side at you, for you, because that's kind of what I'm supposed to do when I'm up in this top corner here. So we all know that Alex Ferguson's working class man, comes from Govan, very much a socialist sort of guy. And do you think there is a part of Alex Ferguson? So I saw a tweet that said this, and it really made me think. Do you think there is a part of Alex Ferguson that would respect this decision? The fact that so many, because one thing we know about Ferguson and the respect that he instilled amongst that football squad was the fact that it didn't matter who you were, whether you were Alex Ferguson, whether you were the tea lady, whether you were doing the dinners, the respect, the pleases, the thank yous, all of that was there. It was all one team and you were all part of the success. So that was very much something that Alex Ferguson drove. So do you think that with all of these people effectively being laid off or being made redundant, that could there be a part of Alex Ferguson that respects that, the fact that actually, rather than just giving the money there and keeping the people that get paid the big bucks in those positions, and then just getting rid of the people that really are talking 40, 50, 60 grand a year getting made redundant potentially, do you think that there's a part of Fergie that might have respected that fact? And what did you make of it all?
I'm going to go as far as to say I think he was part of the decision. I think, does anyone remember just before the international break, we had that big meeting in London where we all speculated that there was going to get rid of Eric Ten Hag in that meeting. But the day before, there was a meeting at Old Trafford and Alex Ferguson was seen going into that meeting. If rumours are led to be true, this was a meeting called by Alex Ferguson. Now, we all speculated that it was all to do with Eric Ten Hag. What happens if it wasn't? What happens? And I'm going to use the term that the rival fans are going to love. Alex Ferguson's getting older. He's obviously not at peak health. Obviously, he's not long just lost his wife. Maybe he wants the burden that is Manchester United and that ambassador role that he has lifting from him. Maybe he just wants the freedom to come and go as he pleases, because maybe he just doesn't want to be going into Carrington to show his face every time something goes wrong, or, the sit-down meetings that he has with Tom, Dick and Harry that have all ultimately led to his ambassador role. But also, So I genuinely feel that he was part of the decision to step away, and I genuinely believe that the headline of this being amicable, and a joint decision, I genuinely feel that Alex Ferguson was part of that decision. But even if he wasn't, and even if Ineos have come in and said, it's £2 million that we need to be saving, people need to respect the fact that the Ineos group have come in to what ultimately is a sinking ship. Man United are reporting massive debt. Manchester United are reporting mass loss in revenue. The Ineos group, especially someone like David Brailsford, comes in and he needs to fix this any way he can, the best way possible, short term as well as long term. Some of the short term solutions was getting rid of the staff that they believe that they didn't need to keep. And I've heard that they've saved about 15 to 17 million pound doing that. I don't know if that figure's true, but wouldn't surprise me. They've obviously come in and they've looked at the football club and they've said that this isn't working, and they've restructured the way we see, the sort of backroom, the likes of Wilcox and all of the Ashworth and all of these men. And that's massive. One of the issues for me, and this is going to be really unpopular, and I know it is going to trigger people in this room, but the reality is it's true. Alex Ferguson, even now, well, up until last year especially, still had an influencer in that dressing room, and that is an anchor on that football team that needs to go. I love Alex Ferguson. I'll respect him forever. I'm honoured to share my birthday with the greatest man in the world. But he is an anchor on this football team. He has an influence in that dressing room that isn't always positive, especially if he's got an opinion that's not the same as the manager's. To me, and Manchester United.
I'm going to have to pull you up on this. I'm going to have to pull you up and ask where you're getting this idea from. What do you mean he's got an influence? What are you suggesting? He just walks in and goes, "Don't listen to Claudio."
Over the years, we've seen him meet. We've seen him at Carrington talking, and again, I know part of this is part of his ambassador role. But over the years, we've seen him talking to players around Carrington. Alex Ferguson I don't think he's the sort of man that if he thought that Marcus Rashford needed to improve on something, he wouldn't mention it to him. I genuinely think he would mention it to him, because I think he's the man that wants what's best for the football club. I think over the years he may have had a conversation with under coaches, coaches under Jose Mourinho, Louis van Gaal, and said that this is what I'd do better. But we don't know if that advice has gone against what the manager at the time wanted. We don't know that. Ultimately, when it comes to what we see on the football pitch in the training ground, there should only be one man that has an influence on that, and that is the manager. And unfortunately, I think that Alex Ferguson had too much to do with the day-to-day running of the football club. And I think that somewhere in this Ineos group assessed this, and they've said that Alex Ferguson needs to just be the man that turns up on game days, takes his seat, has a smile, gives an interview. We don't want him in the dressing room at half-time. We don't want him at Carrington, especially when things are going bad, because it does undermine the manager. And I think that they've come to that conclusion, and sort of maybe forcing him to step back from that role gets control of it, maybe. I think, like I say, Ineos was always going to come in, and unfortunately, some of the decisions that they was going to have made, won't always be popular. But that is ultimately down to the state of the football club that they inherited.
Somebody here wants you to be Prime Minister, but we wouldn't be able to do that, because if you've got tickets to watch Man United, everyone would go absolutely out their tree. So got to be very careful about that. Look at that. We can do political gags here as well. I don't know how I feel about what you've just said, Daz, there, if I'm honest. I suppose, again, if you take it back to the 50s and 60s, there was always Matt Busby obviously had that initial reign that was incredibly good. And then other managers came in, and it was always said that the shadow of Matt Busby loomed large because of the fact he was in the back room, up above in the boardroom, and that was why he came back and did his second shift, which obviously didn't turn out as well as the first. With Ferguson, I think there was always going to be that bit of him being in the background, but I'm not convinced that he's going in there and sort of go, "Oh, do you know what, Marcus, you should be doing this. Don't listen to what he's saying," sort of thing. Because he'd be having to do that whilst everybody's out there watching. It's not like he's just taking them to one side and sort of, "Don't worry, they can't see what we're saying." So yeah, I don't know. I it's a view for sure. But yeah, I'm not convinced, and I don't.
I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and I'm almost certain that over the years, Bobby Charlton potentially did the same thing under Alex Ferguson. He probably did go to the training ground, and he probably did come up to the likes of Gary Neville and Roy Keane and give him a bit of a pep talk and a bit of an advice. Maybe
but I think you're putting too much weight on it, Daz. Because Gary Neville's going to do
winning
that.
at the time. I think that's
Gary
the
Neville's
big
going to do
difference.
that.
We was winning, so when we're losing, I think you've got to look at that and think what could be the poison, the negativity in the dressing room.
But you're saying
as
that
nice
as
it
if
may
they're
be.
going to be only two. They're going to be talking to loads of their parents, their uncles, brothers, sisters, aunties, their families all going to be talking to them, their friends. I just said Gary Neville. He's going to be talking to people. Rio Ferdinand's constantly chatting to people. Like, I think it's a bizarre thing to sit there and imagine that it's just the people that are in role and at boardroom level that are getting into these people's heads. I think that genuinely that they'll be getting stuff from all over. And yes, they might respect the opinion more of someone like a Charlton or a Ferguson. But I don't know. I reckon they get the information and the thoughts from lots of other people. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I go with it anyway. But yes, let's move from Sir Alex, because we've now spent 20 minutes on him, which is absolutely fine. And we'll finish it off with what Benny says here. I don't think Sir Alex camps out at Carrington every day, week in, week out. He'll only turn up when asked. And I think I would tend to agree with that. I don't think he just goes wandering. I think he'll only go in when he's invited. But what I will add as well is that Gary Neville did say, Andrew, in one of the overlap videos I think he was watching, that actually the only people that they used to allow into the dressing room anyway was the players. He was saying that was their area. So you didn't have, like, the goalkeeping coach wasn't supposed to come into the dressing room. It was very much the players' sanctuary. And that wasn't really somewhere that other people should be going. So it's interesting, actually, that if directors and people like that have been allowed to go into the dressing room, just goes, again, to show what a shift there has been. We're going to move on to Ten Hag, because that was the second point I threw in there. And I'm going to start this not by saying, do you agree with all of that? I'm going to put forward a statement, and I just want you to either agree or disagree with me. So my statement for this is very simple. I've put on here, Ten Hag survives the break. Good news. And I put that because I've said this many times now. I've said I don't believe there is any manager currently out there, who's available or not, who's going to come into this football club and change the fortunes of our club between now and January. Don't think it's going to happen. I think with the players we've got, it is what it is. We've already heard that it's going to take 3-4 transfer windows for us to be able to get a squad together that we want to have and that we can use to challenge. So I'm saying my statement, this is good news, because Erik Ten Hag needs to be backed, which it looks like he has been. And as a result, I think it's good that Manchester United have done that, kept faith in him, and it gives Ten Hag a bit of a stronger hand moving forward. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Go on.
I was going to say on Ten Hag, it's a pivotal period. I think everyone thought, would he still be here after the international break? But then we've some insights with the news about Fergie. But you got to look at the season as a start of the season. It's been very underwhelming, and we've got to improve. It's pretty much an obvious, we've got a number of games coming up, and none of them are straightforward, even at this high level. So it's just some of them are favourable on paper, and Ten Hag will undoubtedly know this, and us supporters will be praying he can finally, fix, the problems that have been happening. So we've got Brentford coming up on a Saturday as well, so which is never an easy fixture, even like last season, home and away. So I just remember last season at home just being so angry for those 90 odd minutes, like because we were 1-0 down, I think, pretty much early on, and Brentford just sat in, and it looked like they were on their way to securing a victory, and it was just like until Scott McTominay scored twice, and I just let all the anger and all the emotion, but we've got, as I say, we've got to start to get on the winning ways, and even in the Europa League as well, we got meeting an old friend in Jose Mourinho and Fenerbahce as well. So we've only got a couple of points out of the first couple of games. So it's a tricky time for Ten Hag, but something he can potentially get through as well. So, but yeah, I think it is good news that he's staying. Because I said, when Thomas Tuchel was announced, I was like, thank God for that. He's not going to be coming nowhere near United. But I think in these times of uncertainty, we've got to stick together in all of this. As the phrase goes, united we stand and divided we fall. So, but it seems like at the moment, sometimes the fans get a bit fractured and just want to pull everything apart. But stand together and we'll find we'll get through this. But yeah, so still trusting Ten Hag. I haven't reached that point where I want him gone. So if he doesn't, in these next run of games, it doesn't go well, I'm just trying to think which game would it be that tips me over the edge. But I will know that point which one it is. So like I did with Mourinho and Ollie as well. So, but like I say, just want to get back to winning ways, and some good football would be nice. Like going to Old Trafford and going, what are we going to expect today?
Well, expect the unexpected. I think we're the genuine answer to that. Matt, you've already put down about Ten Hag. You put out on the All for United channel yesterday that he didn't receive any communication from the club. The board never felt like they had anything to tell him. They discussed about the situation and the problems at the club. They insisted he was never really close to being sacked, as per Fabrizio Romano. Now, to me, that's common sense. Like I've been advocating all along that actually the pressure that Eric Ten Hag is under is actually only coming from a certain section of Manchester United fans. I don't think it's coming from anywhere else. I don't, and it frustrates me because I can't see the logic. Because I know that Dan got really annoyed with me when I had this conversation with him last time, but the judgment should have started from when the new owners took over. Like, if you think of it like a restaurant, boys, let's imagine you go into a restaurant. I don't know, what shall we call it? Let's call it Manky City Blues. Let's go into there, right? And we go into Manky City Blues, and it's an absolute rubbish. There's 115 things you can choose on the menu, and all of them are pants. Absolutely pathetic. So as a result, you get really annoyed about it. It's like, this is rubbish. Don't like this, and it gets a really bad reputation. And it started off all right. It looked okay. But actually, you know what? It's not been so great. You go in, there's a lot of injuries, lots of things not on the menu anymore. You go in expecting 115 choices. There's actually only 12. And one of them was meant to be macaroni and cheese. It's not even proper macaroni. It's the stupid bloody ribbon type bow things that they have as pasta. But anyway, I digress. Then think you get a brand new owner of that restaurant. He changes the name. All of a sudden, he calls it the Restaurant of Dreams. And all of a sudden, you're starting to look at a much better place, potentially. But it's still a new owner. Now, if you go in, are you still going to be having a go at it for the time when the new owner wasn't in charge or not? Because I don't understand the logic. I think if it's a new owner, you might look at it and go, all right, well, yeah, it's the same manager. But you'd need to give it a little bit longer than just a couple of weeks. So for me personally, I'm delighted about the fact that Eric Ten Hag is staying. And actually, I don't know how you feel, but I almost get more entrenched. The more I see people on Twitter going, I want Ten Hag out, the more I want him in. It's like it annoys me because I don't want to hear people suggesting that he should be out of a job yet, because I don't think he's even close to it. You look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, we probably pulled the trigger too early on him. Yes, it was an atrocious couple of results. It wasn't great, but actually there was more that could have potentially been done. Are we just in that situation? What do you reckon? Erik ten Hag, do you agree with me that this is good news, that it looks like he's definitely going to make it to Christmas?
Yeah, I do agree. I think I take it back to the start of the season when Ineos first took over. I think we did actually discuss in terms of obviously Ten Hag and Skinner in relation to the women's team as well. As a club, I think even though they've only tied the managers down to like an extra year, I think it's only a short-term outlook. But I think the fact that they're giving each manager a chance under a new structure was the way forward. And like you say, if you look at who's out there and available right now, you could argue maybe Tuchel was probably one of the favourites. Obviously, he's now not an option anymore, which I think a lot of people are glad about, including myself. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm glad they've given him the time to try and turn it around. But at the end of the day, the pressure is always going to come as a United manager, whether it be from a section of the fans, whether it's in the ground or on social media, or whether it be the media itself, which is generally, they're the ones that cause most of the pressure externally from outside of the club. I think it's good that he's getting the chance to do that and turn it around. I think it's vital now in the next few games. I think he does need to start seeing some sort of improvement though. I think we get to Christmas and we're in the same situation. I think the situation might be a little bit different and they might look at it a little bit differently, potentially. But I think us as United fans, whether it's Ten Hag in charge, whether it's whoever, we all just want results and we want to see better performances. You pay money to go and watch them, you watch them on TV. You sit there, you don't want to pulling your hair out every single game, thinking, what on earth are we watching? You just want to see some sort of improvement and a bit of consistency as well, I think is the main issue at the moment, which is sort of leading to the pressure. We could be conceding silly goals, missing big chances. It's just the small minor things that they need to put right. And hopefully it'll just start to click. But yeah, I'm glad now he's got the chance. Now he's got the time to try and turn it around, but it needs to start on Saturday.
I can confirm to you, Matt, that even if you do get to a point where you're consistently tearing your hair out, eventually you just get to a point where there's nothing to pull out. And so as a result, it's not too bad. As you can see, Daz and I have been doing it for some time. We're sort of left just putting our beards now. Daz, I'm going to, again, try and word it slightly differently for you, because my statement and my challenge to you on this one, I'll be honest, the last few weeks I've really been questioning like this, just in general, like coming in, talking on YouTube about a football club that I love, knowing that I have to try and sit here and allow both sets of opinions. It's what it's all about. It's not the Barry show. You've all got to come on and agree with me. It's not a dictatorship. But, people like to shut themselves away from that sort of noise sometimes. It just sort of eats away and hits at you. And it's been a bit of a drama for me. I've not enjoyed it. And as a result, it's got me sort of wondering, do you think that when I talk about the pressure being from some of the fans more than anywhere else, do you think a lot of it is to do with the time that we're living in now? So we talk a lot about Alex Ferguson was given 3 or 4 years, then he finally won the FA Cup, and as a result, he was able to go on and create the dynasty that he did create. Do you think that actually, had there been Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of those sorts of things back when Alex Ferguson was there in the late 80s, that actually he would have been sacked? Because I think a lot more of it is effectively all of this information that's coming out through the internet, more than anything else. Because I often say the only reason, somebody's not happy, the only reason that he will continue supporting Ten Hag is he hasn't heard the match-going fans turn on Ten Hag yet. But that was always the barometer, wasn't it? So if Ten Hag wasn't being turned on, or Ferguson wasn't being turned on necessarily by too much of the fans, a couple of banners, but if that was generally okay, wasn't a reason to sack anyone. But now it's incessant. Plus, with the media constantly wanting clicks and likes and knowing that the best way to get engagement is to throw in something that's going to enrage normal people, have we just hit a point where actually the reason why it's so impossible to be a football manager nowadays is because actually it's so easy to create that hysteria that will end up sacking a manager.
Yeah, and I think it's even worse at a club like Manchester United. I think, with us, regardless to how successful we are, I think one of the things that I do want people to understand is being a big club and being a successful club are two different things. Manchester United are not a successful club. You look at the last 10 years, we're not a successful club right now, but we are still the biggest football club in the country, in my opinion, and that is based on the number of things that I can roll off. I think we are in a time and an era now where I blame Chelsea for it, for sacking managers every 2 years for not winning the league. But no, I think look, common sense tells you, now everyone knows my opinion on Eric Ten Hag, and if they don't, go and check out the other podcasts from All for United. I'm sure you'll get the picture really quick. But common sense tells you that when you inherit a team that had finished in their worst position in history, which we did. I think quite a lot of players left that year, from Paul Pogba, everything from young players to senior players left. It was always going to take any manager, whether that had been Pep Guardiola, even if Alex Ferguson had come back, it was going to take him a minimum of 4 years to get this stuff right. And sometimes it was going to get worse before it could get better. Modern day football doesn't allow, and we have seen a few sort of clubs that have broke that rule, but we don't see managers being not successful in getting time. Whereas actually, winning trophies, and I will sit and say this, even though I am still Eric Ten Hag out, winning trophies and getting top four for Manchester United right now is a successful season. Has Eric Ten Hag achieved that? Well, he's got top four in 2 full seasons. He's got top four once, and he's won 2 trophies. So based on my own sort of measurements, has he had a successful period at Manchester United? Yes, because I think he's done what you would have expected to of him. His first job was to bring trophies back to a club that hadn't won trophies for 6 years. Tick. And we spoke about how the club was poisonous. We've used the term open heart surgery. That doesn't happen in 2 seasons. And I know I'm sort of contradicting myself for wanting him out. I think my reasons for wanting him out are a bit different to the fact that we're just not winning the league and win the Champions League. I accept that we're not there. We're not that club anymore. We could be in 5-6 years if we continue to do things correctly. But right now, we're not there. We're not that club. And I think this is the same for clubs like Chelsea. I think Chelsea, when Broly took over Chelsea, he had a great manager in Thomas Tuchel. But the minute it sort of dipped a little bit, it's let's sack him. Whereas actually, I think if they'd give him three seasons, proper seasons, I think Chelsea would be back in the title mix by now, especially that squad, because that squad's a really good squad. And obviously, we've seen Arsenal back Arteta, and although I don't think he's quite got it over the line yet, and I think he needs to, you're seeing that Arsenal fans are happy with the football that football club are producing because they've given the manager 4 seasons. Will we be here in 4 seasons' time saying we're really glad we gave Eric Ten Hag 4 seasons because actually it's just clicked? I think it's a mixture. I think it's always going to be harder at a club like Manchester United, or harder because 90% of Manchester United fans that are on social media, and I'm not isolating the older generation, but 90% of the United fans that are on social media have been fortunate enough to do that through Alex Ferguson, a club that won everything. We were the best club in the land without a shadow of a doubt. To then having this 10 years, and I think the mindset, especially people like me, that my brain is programmed for Manchester United to win. Problem is, modern day football has also programmed your brain to say that if the manager's not working, sack him. That there's not that program. I think people like yourself, Barry, that might be a little bit older, that would remember Alex Ferguson, I don't know, because it is quite documented that there was football fans that wanted Alex Ferguson gone in his first 4 years, and they've openly come out and they've said, we're not making that mistake again. We made that mistake, and we're glad we kept him because he became the greatest manager of all time. But I think it is hard for United fans that are so used to us winning, and they need to. Dan's openly said it on the channel that we need to pre-program our brain that we aren't that football club anymore. That actually winning trophies and challenging for top four is a successful season for Manchester United as of right now. So I think it's hard. I think it's even harder for Ten Hag. I think Ten Hag's job would not be on the line if he was Chelsea manager, in my opinion, or Spurs manager, or even Liverpool manager post Klopp. I don't think his job would be on the line at Arsenal. I think he is ahead of Arteta was after 2.5 seasons, because obviously what he's won. So it's even harder at Manchester United. So I really do feel for Erik Ten Hag with that. I think for me, I just think it's fundamental reasons why I want him out, not necessarily the fact that we're not challenging anymore.
Fair enough. Box is trying to poke you there with the oldest Klopp Elite discussion that obviously caused you and Dan to almost have fisticuffs. But Box, you're right. Some United fans have already been calling for Ineos out. I know that Twilumba, he's in the chat somewhere. He enjoys trying to stick the boot in to Jim Ratcliffe wherever he can. I'm not going to spend too much time talking to you, young man or young lady. You appear to be having a lovely time in the chat. You crack on and enjoy yourself. All I wanted to tell you on this one is go and do the one ever since 1992 when the Premier League began. And you'll see us sitting there right at the very top, even after 10 years of being absolutely pony. So what can I say? Maybe go and have a little look at that one and then pop back and tell us if you can find us then. But if you're struggling, we're around about 13th or 14th right now. I'm trying to fight off relegation. It happens. But there we go. So that brings us on nicely again to a little segue, which is really sort of the last points that I wanted to talk about. We've had a tricky and absolutely this from Benny. You have to take the hard times as well as the good times. Erik Ten Hag until the very end. Love to see how social media fans would have took the Tommy Top Division 2 era. Absolutely, that would have been incredibly tricky. And Daz is right to talk about these people, but you forget I lived the Ferguson era, but I also lived the just before Ferguson era, and very much so the after Ferguson era. And it is one of those. I get that there is a generation of people that have grown up as Man United fans that have only seen us be successful. But it does frustrate me that people think success goes like this. Can we go and talk to Alan Sugar about what success is? That was a guy who didn't do very well at school. He was dyslexic. He struggled with everything he was trying to do. Like my nephew genuinely seemed to say, and he used to say that, says Alan Sugar didn't need GCSEs. He went on and built a business. Yes, but he had a work ethic. He worked hard. He went out. He spent a little bit of money buying some bits and pieces so that he could sell those bits off. And then with the profit, went on to go and get more and more. And he used that. He had that desire and that drive. What I seem to get from some of these United fans just sometimes seems to be that we don't have that. We don't have that patience, that ability to work together and build up to what should be great. And you need the hard times, because once you have the hard times, the good times are oh so much sweeter. Oh so much sweeter. But what I wanted to talk about was basically what's coming up. It's going to be huge, I think, especially just looking at October. It is a little bit crazy. We've got Brentford at home. That's coming up, obviously, this weekend. And it's a 3:00 kickoff on a Saturday. We haven't had one of those yet this season, I don't think. So that's going to be quite interesting. Fenerbahce away, West Ham at home, then Leicester at home in the League Cup. Andrew, just looking at October, I'm going to let you be the October man on this one. What do you expect? What's the bare minimum for you? Bearing in mind everything I've just said, how it doesn't necessarily have to be great. What is the bare minimum for you in those matches? 2 games in the Premier League, Brentford and West Ham, 1 home, 1 away. A Europa League game, we're not doing brilliantly in the Europa League, but you know, I think we're still undefeated. We've drawn them both, haven't we? So you've got that one. Fenerbahce away, which is not an easy task at all. You know, going to Turkey at any point for this is a little bit tricky. And what do you think about United at home to Leicester? Did I not say away against West Ham? I'm getting very old, Benny, so I apologise if I said at home. I'm going to go back and check that just so I thought I said away because it definitely says away there on the app that I'm looking at, but I could be wrong. Rain thinks we're losing. What do you reckon, Andrew? What's the minimum for you for October?
4 wins out of 4. Well, that's got to be the minimum. Well, we're going to United games thinking, well, we can win these games. But it's 90 minutes of football, win, lose, or draw. But as I say, you know, Saturday at home against Brentford, you know, Thomas Frank leading his Brentford side out and a manager himself that's potentially being linked to it. If Ten Hag was to not do so well, Thomas Frank would be one of the potential replacements that could be heading our way. But let's say history bodes well for us. You know, we've won the last previous 5 home league games against Brentford, so it should be the case of another home victory. And it's Fenerbahce away. Well, we'd meeting Mourinho again, and he would love to get one over us again. Well, and he's, you know, but hopefully we can go to Turkey, you know, and, you know, pick up our first win in the Europa League, because we certainly do need it. So it's not been the best start to the Europa League, and West Ham's always a tricky away, you know. It's just, even like West Ham, they've sort of not had a great start, a little bit like United. So it's just, and I'm thinking Ten Hag will hope for an improvement, you know, in East London. You know, having, I think he lost the last couple there as well. So, but and then we got the end of the month, you know, the League Cup tie against Leicester City. So yeah, so we did the double over in the 22-23 season. So hopefully, you know, capitalise, you know, on their struggles they've had on return to the top flight. So it'll be interesting in that game how much rotation Ten Hag puts into that as well. So, and say, you know, we've got a few injuries even going into the Brentford game as well. So it's just, you know, got no Maguire, Mazraoui's out now as well. Luke Shaw and Malacio, when are they getting back? I don't know, but the reports are Martinez or even Johnny Owen goes in at left back. But I was reading earlier, good news is Mason Mount's on the way back, so hopefully he can just get a run of games, because I feel like when he's inside with Bruno, when they press, it's more effective. When Bruno tries to press on his own, he's looking around, why is no one else pressing with me? He's having to gee on his teammates to do something, but Mason Mount alongside him, I think that could definitely start working in the games coming up. But yeah, I hope for 4 wins out of 4, but this is United, but I live in hope.
Interesting. So I'm not sure we got the bare minimum that we would expect out of that there, but we certainly got what you wanted, so that's fine. I shall live with that and take that one there, Andrew. Matt, once you've done that, we'll move into November now. Obviously, there'll be 3 matches before we then go back into another international break, which will be the last one before Christmas, thank the Lord. But again, 3 interesting games. And for me, possibly, I mean, the big one there is going to be Man United against Chelsea, obviously. 3rd of November, home game for Manchester United against Chelsea there, followed by a home game for Manchester United against PAOK, Salonika, I think that's what it used to be called. Lovely little Greek team there, followed by another home game for Manchester United against Leicester. So 3 home games, definitely. Look, the quest is on the left-hand side for all of them, Benny. 3 home games, Matt, on the trot before we get to that international break. By that point, we'd have played 2 more Europa League games, 4 EPL games, potentially be through in the League Cup, providing we've had a good result against Leicester. For those 3 games, Matt, what are you expecting us to have achieved by that point?
I think if you look at it, I think the opportunity to be playing at home 3 games on the bounce should be enough to spur the team up. I think our home form, I think that was a big issue last season as well. I think we've been quite poor at Old Trafford for quite a while now, to be honest with you. We've not really got the results there. Teams seem to come to Old Trafford and think they can nick something against or even beat us on our own patch, which really shouldn't be happening. Yeah, like I say, I think the fact they've got 3 home games on the trot in November tells me ultimately they need to be winning the home games. If you win your home games and obviously pick up as many points as you can away from home, at the end of the season, you're going to finish in a pretty decent position, you'd like to think. But I think ultimately we need to improve our home form first and foremost. Away from home, we seem to set up fairly well, like against Villa. Obviously, it was a 0-0 draw, but you'd go into that game thinking it'd be, the way Villa had been playing, quite a tricky game. We didn't play great. We didn't play terrible. Neither team really did anything, really. But the way we set up away from home is a lot different to the way they play at home. And I think we need to start getting the results at home. But I think that we need to start taking our chances. We're getting the chances. Just need to start sticking away. But yeah, for me, we just need to make sure we start winning our home games and then just try to pick up as many points away from home. But you'd like to think, looking at that, Chelsea might be a tricky one. But then Europa League, we need to start picking up in as well, because if we keep dropping points in that, we could be heading out in the group stages, which wouldn't be a good look.
Yeah, feels reasonable to me. Daz, again, we'll twist it slightly for you. I don't really want to ask this question, but I've thought it in my head and it feels like a sensible question to go down, considering what this show's been about. After the West Ham game, we'd have had 4 home games on the trot, and we've just spent time talking about social media. But we also said that the crowd at Old Trafford is a big barometer for how safe a manager's job could be. Bearing in mind that November is Chelsea, then it's the Europa League game, then it's Leicester again, and we will have already played in the League Cup just a couple of weeks earlier. Do you think that actually by the time we get to that Leicester game on the 10th of November, that we'll be in the same situation as we were just before this international break, with potentially a lot more questions around Ten Hag's future? Or do you listen to those games and think that actually they're very winnable and that really Fenerbahce and Chelsea are the only 2 that we should be looking at as could potentially be a draw, not too sure about? What do you reckon?
I think we'll go into the next international break in the same position we're in now in terms of the uncertainty. I've actually been trying to think about this because at some point, Ineos Group have to say this isn't working and we are going to get rid of the manager, or at some point they have to come out and publicly say, not just we're not being rushed into a decision, they need to come out and they need to say he is being backed, stop speculating. You know, they need to do one or the other for me, and really they need to make it clear to the world's media so everybody is clear. I've been trying to figure out in my head how we turn this around. Now, the one reason why I like an international break is if you're playing really bad, it gives the manager an opportunity to take the players that wasn't selected. So in our case, that's your Kobe Mainoo's, your Marcus Rashford's, your Mason Mounts, and you get a couple of weeks to work with them on the training ground, just reinforce stuff, just brush up on stuff. But we didn't get that because the manager decided that going on holiday for 10 days was more important than staying at home with the team. So quite a lot of the players was given extended breaks. Obviously, Marcus Rashford flew to Las Vegas. A couple of other players obviously stayed with rehab. So we didn't get that. So there's nothing for me that would say that they've had a good 10 days. You know, they all decided to stay and work. There's nothing that tells me anything's going to change. And having a few more injuries, you know, like I say, we had a left-back dilemma before, but we've really got a left-back dilemma now because our right-back that was playing left-back isn't even going to be playing left-back now. I've heard today that Ugarte went off in international break with a knock. Chances is he's not going to be playing against Brentford, is he? I genuinely think in my head that the only thing Eric Ten Hag and us as a fan base can do is just look at the next 3 games, because I think we should be beating Brentford. Not just because I'm being cocky, being a Man United fan. I genuinely think that this Man United team is better than Brentford and we should be beating Brentford. As good as they are, as tricky as they are, we should be beating that Brentford team. And we then go to Fenerbahce. I think, again, it's a must-win game, given the fact that we've been so candid with the first 2 Europa League games. We're in a position now where we have to win games. We don't have a choice. We want to progress. We've got to win it. You then go into the West Ham game, and for me, if we can get 2 wins out with the next 2 games, I'd take a draw against West Ham, because West Ham's tricky for any team. So, that would be 7 points across the 3 games. And I think Brentford's important because it sets the tone for the next 2 games. My biggest worry at this is, and I know it's bringing back up a conversation you don't like, is if we don't win the next 3 games, or we get minimal points, like a draw in all 3 games, I genuinely think he's gone, because I've heard the term in the conversation tonight that he's staying and, they're sticking with the manager, but there's nothing to base that on. Because if you go back to before Ineos took over, Jim Ratcliffe openly came out on a cycling show and said that Manchester United managers over the years haven't been given enough time. He then took over and he sort of echoed the same sort of thing. The manager needs to be backed. There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen within the club to make it right for the manager to succeed. He then went through a couple of bad games, and the media speculated he was out. Ineos came out and they backed him. Again, it happened a couple of weeks later. Ineos then came out again and backed him. We then had this big meeting, and Ineos sort of came out and basically said that they're not rushing. It's just the standard quarterly meeting or whatever it is. But naturally, the position of the football club would be discussed. But what they've not come out and done, like they have done religiously before, is they've not come out and backed him. So that's quite awkward, because whereas in the last 6 months since Ineos have been in charge, I can count 4 occasions where they've backed him publicly, but they've not said anything after this meeting. Literally,
do you not think maybe they just thought, what's the bloody point? We keep on coming out and telling people we're going to be safe, and actually nobody's listening because they're still chatting the same rubbish, so we might as well just shut up.
Why do they need to? Why do they need to do that? Because it's almost like coming out publicly backing, like every other clubs have done. You say, probably back. You kind of say it's the death knell, because once it's just like it was a 6-hour meeting. Like I said, a lot of things were discussed. 10 hours was one of them, but other things were discussed. They don't need to reveal anything about that meeting at all. So I'm just like it's business as usual. That's what I'm said to other people, saying, people, bantering me about 10 hour being he's going to get this out. So I don't see it at the minute, and just it's business as usual. We're just doing what we do best.
And he's under contract as well.
Yeah, we've got to pay 16
There's
million.
Absolutely no need to. And at the end of the day, it's either they sack him, make an announcement then, or if they're not, then you don't have to say anything. Just let him get on with his job. That's the way I
mean, I am a firm believer that if you're not going to sack a manager...
I'd actually go so far as to say, I don't know if you've ever played Football Manager, but actually having the board come out and say, oh no, we've got full confidence in this guy, meant he was getting sacked in about 2 weeks' time. So actually no news is probably good news.
No, I'm a firm believer that if the manager's job is never at risk, for all we know, Ineos have been on the phone to Eric Ten Hag and they've said privately, we're backing you 100%, don't worry, you've got our full confidence. And, they feel that they don't need to echo anything to the media, because as far as they're concerned, his job was never at risk, so they don't need to clarify anything up. But for me, I think they do, because they have done 3-4 times in the past, because every time the media have come out and speculated his position at the club, they have come out and have said, we're sticking, they've said it in different ways, but the message has been, we're sticking with the manager. But they've not done that after this meeting. Now, that could just be, like people have said, Ineos are basically not entertaining this anymore. They're backing the manager, and that's not going to change. Or it could be that his job isn't safe, and they maybe we're trying to get, seeing where we are at the next international break. But, I mean, I did a rough calculation based on predicted results, realistic predicted results. we could go, if our form points per game continues between now and the next international break, we go into the next international break in the relegation zone. Now, we're never going to get relegated. I'm going to say that now. Even if we stuck with the manager and it isn't working, we're 100% not going to get relegated. Not saying we're going to finish in the top half, but we're 100% not getting relegated. But there was a time that, you know, when Manchester United managers didn't qualify for the Champions League, that was the point of when past managers have been sacked. I genuinely feel, no matter how many games we are into the season, the minute that we're in the relegation zone, knowing full well we're not going to stay there, I think that automatically triggers him to go. Automatically. I think that would be a trigger that he's got to go, because you've got to look at that from the bigger picture. Manchester United not being visible on the top half of the table does impact the share price. And ultimately, that's what it's all about. I think being in the relegation zone impacts the share price. And at some point, they have to do what's best for the share price, not necessarily for the football club. Because unfortunately, for the Ineos, they only control the football side of the football club. And we do have owners that are commercially focused. They are focused on that share price more so than the results of the football club. That they do still have, in my opinion, I think if when push come to shove, if they felt that the manager had to go because the share price was dropping, I don't think Ineos would have a choice. I think they would have to respect the Glazers' wishes to sack the manager.
Well, I mean, they do only own a part of it, so that may well be true. But again, we're not in the top half of the table as we stand at the moment. As Rain has already told us, you know, he's struggling to find us because he can't read past 10. So, you know, that's a bit of a problem over there. But just to point out, because you did mention it, again, All for United, we did put it out there based on something that Fabrizio Romano had said. They had discussed the situation and problems at the club, but they insisted that he was never really close to being sacked. So you're saying that it comes out in different ways. Well, that's the way to me. Like, how much better can you get? He was never really close to being sacked. And that was only yesterday. So, you know, something has come out. Jarvis here saying we'll finish fifth if injuries don't ruin our season again. He's obviously just come out with something. That's what I was doing on my phone just a minute ago. Was just checking this. Now, I've got no idea who United Menace is or how successful he is or she is with the things that they say. About 4,000 followers they've got. But it says Kobe Maynard set to be out for an injury for about 4 weeks, depending on recovery and rehabilitation, which is just simple. And we all know, as Box says, that Ugarte went off with a potential hamstring problem in his international game as well, right towards the end. So once again, injuries just sort of creeping in. And I've got to say, you know, Rain was much more sensible with some of the things he was mentioning at the end of his little rants that he was coming out there. I don't know why Mount keeps getting injured at United. She was always fit at Chelsea. And that to me is one of the big things at the minute, is why we are getting as many injuries as we are. It's certainly something that we will need to address in the future. But for now, listen, I've enjoyed it. I really have. But I think we are getting towards the end. Now, I don't know if we're going to have a Brentford preview show as it stands. So just in case we don't, let's ask you boys, what do you think the score is going to be for that 3 p.m. kickoff while we're all watching, wishing that Jeff Stelling was on Soccer Saturday? Andrew Wall, what's the score going to be for Manchester United Brentford?
3-1.
3-1. Who's scoring?
I'm going to say Hoyland's going to score if he does get on the pitch. I'm going to back Marcus to score. Just trying to think who would be my... Garnacho as well.
Okay. Daz, what do you reckon the score is going to be?
I'm looking at the injuries. You're trying to work past the manager. I'm looking at the injuries, and we've got 3 injured centre-backs, 2 injured left-backs, 1 injured right-back, 3 injured midfielders.
So 10-0 Man
I
United.
can't see us not conceding goals. I really can't. And I know we've actually picked up quite a few clean sheets this year, which is quite surprising. But I can't see us not. I'm gonna be quite optimistic. I'm gonna say 3-2 United because I do see us conceding goals with that injury crisis.
Who's scoring our 3?
Oh, I think Anthony will score. I don't know about the others. I'd like Marcus Rashford to put another one in because his form has been a bit 50-50. You know, he's having peaks and drops. So I think we'll see a goal from Marcus Rashford, Haaland, and I think Anthony will come on and pick the winner up.
Oh, God, Anthony, we've forgotten about him. Matt, for you?
I was going to go with what Andrew says. I think 3-1. I reckon I fancy Rashford to get another one. I actually fancy Eriksen, possibly if he starts to get a goal. He's looking pretty good. He looks pretty good for Denmark. He scored the other day as well. Fancy so Rashford, Eriksen, and do you know what? If De Ligt starts, I fancy De Ligt to score a set piece, a header, or
nice.
So yeah, that's my score. 3-1. Hopefully 3 points.
I'm not entirely sure I'm going with this one. I think it could. I see one of 2 scenarios playing out. Scenario 1 is that Brentford get a goal at some point to open the scoring, and then we have to sort of pull ourselves out of the mire, and we go on to win sort of 2-3, 4-1, something like that. Or we come out of the blocks absolutely blazing, get ourselves a goal, and win sort of 3 or 4-0. So that's my 2 scenarios that I'm going for. I want to believe it's the second one, but I feel it's probably going to be the first one because, you know, when you're trying to stop a hemorrhage of blood, it does take quite a lot of pressure to do that. So I think there'll still be just that little bit of squirting, and that'll be the goal just there. Listen, it's been a good show, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us once again. Daz, if people wanted to see your TikToks, whereabouts would they need to go?
That's very controversial. I'm on most days, but yeah.
Excellent. Andrew, whereabouts can people read your ramblings, and have you got any ramblings that you have written down anywhere for people to read that are recent?
Not recently, but you can find my ramblings on Stretford Paddock and find my ex down there at that handle. Or wherever, yeah.
Yeah, there somewhere.
Excellent.
And Matt, give me the top 3 reasons why people should subscribe to All for United on Twitter.
Because I'm putting the posts out.
Now give me 2 other ones that don't involve you.
I think, to be honest with you, the fact that we don't post absolutely everything, like you see a lot of these accounts, not naming channel names, but we know who we're talking about, that just post out anything that comes out. That's the second reason. And the third reason, we're on, I think, nearly halfway to 1.3k followers. So yeah, I'd go with them 3 reasons.
There we go. Some good reasons indeed. Well done. And considering we didn't rehearse that was very good. Well done. Very impressed. Jarvis will finish us off tonight. Bruno and Eriksen look great for their national teams. Defensively will be fine. Højlund's picking up form. This could be the turning point of the season. I think really all I can say to that, Jarvis, is I bloody well hope so, because I'm getting a little bit depressed and it's got nothing to do with the football. It's been brilliant. Thank you, everybody. We will be back, if not for a preview, probably Saturday night. It'll be Saturday Night Live again. And hopefully we'll all be sitting here talking about how amazing it is to have Rasmus Højlund top of the Premier League scoring charts because he's banged in 7. See you later.